What is going on, everybody? It's your boy NeoStarling, and I am back here with another review of The Last of Us episode 6. I gotta say, a lot happened here, and we're definitely gonna talk about it. If you are feeling this, please feel free to subscribe to this channel, help your brother out. Wow, I gotta say, this is definitely a pretty exciting episode. I really enjoyed it. When I think about the way that the show made changes from the original source material, there are times where I did initially question some of their decisions, but I have to say that overall, I think most of the choices that they've made haven't necessarily been a bad thing. You know, they're sort of doing their own thing, and I can appreciate that. Once more, you know, you're always gonna take creative liberties. You're never gonna make something step by step the way it was from the original source material, and again, I think that's okay, because in these particular situations, you don't want it to feel overwhelming. You don't want it to feel too similar to what you had previously experienced, because then you're just watching a rerun in a way. If you think about it, you're not watching like this new creation that is just semi-familiar to what you've already experienced in the past. Now, just to get into the story, they did start off with a little bit of humor, which I thought was kind of funny. They run into this elderly couple. They're in the middle of nowhere in this little cabin. The weather has changed, by the way. It is now fall, or as they said, 3 months after the incident that happened with Henry and Sam. In the game, it went straight to fall. So I kind of like that they did that. They just kind of picked up right from where it left off. Now we're in a different venue. You know, it's snowing. So they find this elderly couple, and they made a huge joke about it, because that whole scene was a joke, you know? Like, they're holding a gun to this old lady, and the guy is just there like, oh, what's going on here? And she's like, oh, you know, I made them some soup. He's like, why'd you make them soup? And I just found it hilarious, because this lady's overweight. That's one of the first things that I noticed. But not to say that overweight actresses shouldn't have an opportunity. Obviously they should. I just found it interesting that in an apocalypse you have somebody this heavy, you know what I mean? But apparently prior to the apocalypse, these two individuals already kind of left civilization. So, you know, just for years he's been hunting. So I'm sure that they have their own established way of supporting themselves, which was fine by me. I thought it was really funny. She's like, I mean, they didn't hurt me, you know, I might as well make them a soup. The reason Joel and Ellie were there, it wasn't to rob them. They were there to get directions, essentially, because they were closing in on Tommy's location. But the primary issue now had been that they were pretty much lost. You know, it was a big field. You know, the snow also sort of changed the landscape a little bit. So they didn't know where they were at. The old guy shows them where they needed to go. Call it a day. They moved on. He was telling them that there's this like river of death that they got to watch out for. And, you know, if they don't, then, you know, they're going to be screwed. So at this point, Joel sort of catches a little bit of a panic attack. And this is a theme throughout the episode. I noticed that he caught a panic attack on multiple occasions. We're going to talk more about that a little later on, but you know, this is a combination of the fact that he's like a 56-year-old man now, and at the same time, he's also really worried about Ellie. You know, he's just not feeling as capable as he used to. We fast forward a little bit, you know, they have some conversation, and then they end up getting ambushed by people and horses, right? Now, you haven't really seen horses in a while because it's an apocalypse. Who just has horses nowadays? You know, they pretty much had a dog to sniff them out to see if they were infected. Apparently, these dogs are now trained to spot whether or not somebody is infected. Joel was really nervous because he felt that the dog was going to sniff out Ellie. The dog ended up really liking her, so they ended up taking them to their town. This wasn't a QZ. This was like a town, like a modern day, well, semi-modern day. It kind of felt like a old school, like Western town, like, you know, back in the day with cowboys and whatnot. This is actually a little Easter egg from the second game, because this is the town that they end up going to in the second game. Like, this is where they end up living. And I found it interesting because they had electricity, they had movies, you know what I mean? They had bars with like fully stacked alcoholic beverages in the background. They were living like a normal life there. And that's because these people were able to like get together and sort of just live their lives, you know? When they get there, we have a very emotional interaction with Joel and his brother. Him and Tommy meet up. They give each other a big hug. It was really emotional. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I didn't get teary-eyed, but I definitely felt the emotion in that hug, because that's how I would feel if I hadn't seen my brother in such a long time. And, you know, Joel at this point thought he was going to go rescue him, but Tommy was okay. He was not only okay, but he was thriving. He was doing amazing. They all introduce each other to Ellie and Maria, which is his wife. By the way, so Tommy is played by Gabriel Luna, and his wife Maria was played by Rutina Wesley. I remember Rutina Wesley from True Blood. Yes, I remember her from the True Blood series. You know, she's a pretty good actress. Now, I will address the elephant in the room. Yes, they did race swap her, but they've race swapped a ton of characters. I personally didn't really care because Maria in the game was never that much of a focal point. She wasn't that important of a character. You know what I mean? They already race swapped almost everybody else. So I didn't really care. I thought the actress personally did a good job. That's all that I really care about at the end of the day. So I'm not gonna make that a big deal. I know that people on the internet are gonna be like, oh, how dare they? They did it again. I'm not about that crap. I don't give a shit. Personally, if you did a good job in your performance, that's all I'm gonna really care about at this particular moment. So we fast forward and they finally are eating a real meal, and you could tell that these two haven't had a home cooked meal in a really long time because they just scarfed it down like if they were prisoners coming out of prison for the first time. They did give us a little Easter egg. So there was this girl that was looking at Ellie. Her name is Dina, by the way. They showed a very quick introduction of her. Dina ends up being Ellie's girlfriend in the second game, right? So they kind of gave us a little taste of what we would be expecting. They showed the actress briefly. I don't know what her name is. Ellie, being the savage monster that she is, she scared her off and she kind of ran away. But Ellie's also noticing that the people in this town, they're kind of soft, and the reason they're soft is because they don't have to be hardcore, they're being taken care of for the most part. They do make a little bit of a political joke where where Joel says he calls them communists pretty much. And Tommy's like, no, we're not communists. And then Maria's like, no, we are. This is a commune. We're all here together. We're all making like decisions, blah, blah, this, that, and the third. So apparently communism works really well in the apocalypse, right? Go figure. Again, that's going to be something that people on the political end are going to make a big deal of. I already know it. I can sense it. I guarantee this is going to be a thing. But regardless of that, we fast forward and Joel pretty much speaks to Tommy and he tells him, hey, listen, this girl's infected, but she's also not infected. Like, he's been with her for months now and she hasn't transformed or anything. So he's trying to get her to the Fireflies. Joel opens up to Tommy about him being really nervous and feeling like he can't protect her. It's really sad because Joel, you don't see this level of vulnerability from him in the game, and with good reason. Joel was meant to be this very like unlikable super alpha male, has been through hell and he doesn't care about anybody kind of deal. But here in the show, they're sort of humanizing him a little more, which I do appreciate because it's just a little more realistic. He's nervous because he's scared that he's gonna lose Ellie. He already lost Tess. He's been losing someone every episode. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. In the second episode, he lost Tess. In the third episode, he pretty much loses Bill and Frank. Even though they weren't really friends in that sort of way, they were still people that he was familiar with and he lost, In the fourth episode, they don't really lose anybody, but this is where you do introduce Henry and Sam. And then in the fifth episode, they're both gone. So Joel is literally losing everyone that he comes across with. So he is starting to feel inequipped to actually take care of Ellie. And it shows because that moment when they got ambushed by these cowboys, right? He was nervous. He didn't know what to do. He genuinely felt like, okay, this is over. Like, I can't do anything to protect her. And in all fairness, it doesn't matter how badass he is. No one could have done anything in that situation. So I really don't think he should have been particularly hard on himself for that reason. But, so he tells Tommy, hey, I think you should take her. You know the terrain better. You're obviously younger. You're in better shape than I am. You're more capable. He ends up agreeing. So he tells Ellie, and this is another place where they sort of made a change from the original game, because in the original game, Ellie runs away when she finds out that Tommy was going to be the one that takes her. But this time they skipped that, and I'm kind of glad they did because it's a little bit unrealistic to have her just running away randomly, throwing a temper tantrum just because Joel decides that he was going to pass the buck to his brother instead, which is something that they did in the game. And then you had to go on this little like nonsense side quest where you're riding horses looking for her, you're fighting off bandits and whatnot. They pretty much skipped all of that, and they got to the part where Ellie is already in the house that they had assigned to them, and she's reading this diary, and Ellie's like, is this all people had to worry about back then? Like, this is ridiculous. Once more, Ellie's battle hardened. She's not a regular girl. You guys got to keep in mind that she was born post-apocalypse. You know what I mean? So things like talking about boys or just writing in diaries, this is nonsense to her. She's like, what the hell is this, right? So they have this really hard conversation, which also happens in the game, and they kind of added their own little like flair to it. But essentially, Ellie's upset, and she goes, yo, like, you don't care about me? And he goes, of course I do. And then Ellie makes the mistake of bringing up Joel's daughter, because Maria had previously told her about Joel's daughter. Ellie didn't know about this before. So it's safe to say Joel gets upset. He gets upset more because it almost felt like an insult to him for her to say, hey, I'm not your daughter, you know, like she basically couldn't survive in this world, but I can. I'm equipped. Like I know how to kill people. I know how to shoot a gun. You know, I'm already well experienced in this. You don't have to like carry me to my destination. Sort of like he did with Sarah in the beginning. Now that's not what Ellie said specifically, but this is essentially what Joel thought. So he gets upset. He goes, that's right. You ain't my daughter. She gets really upset. But again, she doesn't run away. You know, he basically tells her, hey, Tommy's gonna take you, deal with it. They had a very emotional back and forth with each other. I kind of liked that they did this too, because it really starts to show that they've been together for a while now. Like in the continuity of the series and in the game, they've been together for several months already. This is not like a week that he's been with her. So they've grown to develop actual emotions for each other. Joel does care about her. He does not want to lose her. So that's why he wanted Tommy to do this. So we fast forward. Ellie is about to leave with Tommy, but then Joel's with the horse and he decides that he's going to take her. Ellie's really excited, but she doesn't want to show it. She just kind of passes in the bag and is like, all right, let's go. But she was really happy. So they ride off to the university where they were going to meet up with the Fireflies. This also does happen in the game. They run into the monkeys. They had the whole scene with the monkeys, which I thought was pretty neat. There is no one in this university. Apparently the Fireflies left. They made a list and they vacated. So now they don't know where they are. Right, so as they're gonna leave the university, they get ambushed, and Joel valiantly fights off one of the ambushers, but he does get stabbed in the process. This is also something that they divulged from a little bit in the video game, because in the game, obviously Joel fights an army because, you know, this is how games are, they're ridiculous. He actually falls and gets impaled. So Ellie is like trying to get him out of the university. Here, this whole fight takes place outside of the university, and Joel basically snaps one guy's neck, you know, he gets stabbed. So Ellie's visibly worried about him. She manages to get him on the horse. They ride off, and Ellie's shooting some bullets in the background so that they don't chase them. You know, we get to the point where they're a safe distance from these raiders. You know, Joel basically falls off the horse. Ellie's really worried. She starts to cry because she's like, yo, I can't do this without you. But it is not just about getting to her destination at this point. She is afraid of being alone. So now you have a situation where this little girl is by herself with the only person that she trusts more than anything in the world. Her surrogate father essentially is dying and she doesn't know what to do. And that is where we end our episode. Wow, right? A lot of stuff happened here. And you know what? Once more, for anybody that complains about Joel not fighting armies of people and undead, it's unrealistic. Let's keep it 100 here, guys. Like I said, once more, you have to tell a cohesive story. Joel is one man, and you know, in continuity of this series, he's 56 years old. So he's not going to be running around, jumping off of cliffs, snapping necks, giving headshots like every 5 seconds. You got to make it more realistic, because otherwise you can't suspend your disbelief and you're not going to believe what's happening. I'm okay with them doing it this way, honestly, because I care more about the story that they're telling. That's why I thought episode 3 was so impactful, because this was a story. They were telling a story of 2 minute characters that weren't going to have anything else to do with the rest of the series. But it was a good story, and I appreciate good storytelling. We already have zombie shows and movies where there's tons of crazy action sequences. I really want them to focus on giving us a cohesive, good story. But with that said, I hope you guys like this. Done.